While you're reading professionally published works, I'm sure you don't think twice about the dialogue. That's because big works usually have top-notch editors who would Kaioken sucker punch their artist if their work was illegible. So what does this mean? On the screen you should be seeing examples of different works with lackluster lettering. Can you tell why these pages look worse than these pages? Take a moment to actually look at these pages. Forget everything you know about art and just try to read these pages. What you'll notice about the lettering is spacing and presentation. Later on in this video, I'm going to show you the perfect strategy to make sure your lettering is beautiful. So make sure you stick around until the end. Another side note, big names like Marvel Comics and DC Comics sometimes experience their own fair share of bad lettering. Take a look at some of these pages here. Despite having cramped words and horrendously stretched out speech bubbles, these works still hit the shelves. Honestly, I think manga pages do a better job of lettering sometimes. That is, if you read a clean translation. Even the pros mess up lettering, so don't beat yourself up too much. If your dialogue looks like doo-doo, then just know that the pros also look like doo-doo. The first tip for lettering I want to bring up is proper spacing. In the amateur examples I showed you, it was evident that the artist either A, didn't give their dialogue enough room to breathe, or B, spaced their dialogue out in such a way that reading it became awkward. With spacing, you want your words to add to your page, not take away. So look at this example on the screen. In this wrong example, you can get distracted from the artwork because the speech bubbles are all over the place. With spacing, you want your words to sit comfortably within your speech bubbles with a few pixels on each side. In my opinion, it's better for your dialogue to be too small for your page rather than too large. The second idea I want you to know with spacing is to split up your dialogue. Like in some of the examples I've shown you earlier, some artists try to cram multiple sentences into each bubble. In my opinion, I believe your best bet is creating a new speech bubble after every sentence. This way, each sentence can breathe and be legible to the reader. If you want your sentences to directly follow each other, then take a look at this page from Samurai 8. By combining two bubbles, you are able to keep the sentence flow, but organize them neatly. Right here on the screen is going to be a guide I reference pretty often when lettering. Some important takeaways here are the spacing notes. Rule number 2 is the one I want to highlight because your dialogue should resemble a square shape as much as possible. Think of it more like pay for your buck. Your dialogue should look neat and not take up too much space on the page. Rule number 4 is also good to take note of because it's something subtle artists do without really thinking about it. If you don't know what a tangent is, I'm glad you've avoided calculus class. Basically, a tangent is a line that intersects a shape at exactly one point. So on the screen, you should see the example of this line intersecting the bubble. To avoid this, just be cautious about where you're placing your balloons. Rule number 7 is also a good one to highlight because it's something so simple but so easy to miss. When you know you're going to bisect your balloon, avoid doing it from the position with the greatest width. Slicing towards the top is a much wiser choice. The next template is another one I reference pretty often because it goes over the importance of negative space. I mentioned earlier that you want to try and keep your dialogue in a square-like shape with a few pixels of negative space on each side. This is just a visual representation of that. Looking at this, it's easy to see how clean your dialogue could be. So it's a bit disorienting growing up with professional comics, still making avoidable mistakes. Now that you know how to keep your dialogue clear and concise, I'm going to move on to a few font recommendations. I'm sure you've heard of this fantastic font known as Comic Sans. It's a meme at this point, but have you ever sat down and asked yourself why? Let's take a look at it. Comparing these two letters, it's clear that Comic Sans is just sloppy compared to the other font. Looking at this comparison, it's easy to see that the letter spacing is also wonky with Comic Sans. Some fonts I would recommend for comic lettering include CC Wildwords, Digital Strip, and Lafayette Comic Strip. I've tested each of these out, and I can tell you that they are Monitor Comics approved. They're all structured cleanly and spaced well, and they'll look very professional in your projects. So now that you know all of these lettering tips, your comic book making skills will be taken to the next level. If you found any value in this video, please hit that subscribe button and like the video so you don't miss out on any more juicy content. Be sure to check out my previous videos so you can learn all about making manga and comics and webtoons. Like always, you can find the links to all of my social media accounts down in the description below. If you guys could share this video around with a friend, you'd really be helping me and the channel out. Please drop a comment down below on what you'd like to see next, or if you have any follow-up questions. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.